Why did her hands tremble when no one else's did? The briefing room was full of men who had done this before, operators with faces carved by sun and silence, commanders who spoke like their words weighed nothing. But her, she sat near the edge of the table, back straight, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the grain of the wood because looking up meant revealing something she wasn't ready to. No one looked at her twice, not because she was invisible but because they didn't trust her yet. She wasn't one of them, not really. A transfer pulled in for this mission, a rifle on loan, a skill set acknowledged only in whispers. She should have been used to that, but tonight was different. The colonel's voice droned, outlining coordinates, extraction windows, contingencies. Maps flickered on the projector screen. Her mind tracked every mark, every possible route, every place the mission could splinter into chaos. And yet, through the technical precision, there was something else burning underneath the silence, something heavier than the mission itself. Because there was one thing she hadn't told them, not yet. The colonel's pointer tapped against the red circle on the screen. This is the target, confirmed presence as of 400 hours. Our window is narrow. One clean shot, one chance. The room was still. She felt every eye shift, not toward her, but toward the empty air between them, as if the shot already belonged to someone else. But she knew it didn't. It belonged to her. Her throat tightened. She swallowed, tasting iron. The memory of another day pressed against her lungs, a different rifle, a different rooftop, a shot that hadn't been taken, a decision that still carved her dreams into fragments. She blinked once, forced her hands still. They would never know what this shot meant. Outside, the night air was sharp enough to cut. She stepped onto the balcony of the compound, the city lights scattered in the distance like embers fatting in ash. Her rifle case was leaning against the wall, unopened, silent. She stared at it the way a believer might stare at scripture, both reverent and afraid. A shadow stepped beside her, Sergeant O'Neill. Older, broad shoulders, lines etched deep into his face from too many desert suns. He carried the smell of tobacco and worn leather. He didn't speak at first, just lit a cigarette, exhaled, and let the smoke hang in the air between them. "You're quiet," he said finally. She kept her eyes forward. "I'm always quiet." "Yeah, but tonight it feels heavier." He flicked ash over the rail. "You've done this before, right?" The question cut closer than he knew. She nodded. "Enough times." "Then don't overthink it. We don't need ghosts in the field." Ghosts, the word bit harder than it should have, because she had one, and he was right, it followed her everywhere. She wanted to tell him, wanted to unload the weight pressing against her chest, but how could she? They didn't know about her brother. They didn't know what it had cost her to pick up a rifle again. They didn't know that tonight the bullet wasn't just for the mission. It was for him. Instead, she just said, "I'll be ready." O'Neill nodded as if he believed her. He didn't. She could see it in his eyes. At 200, the convoy rolled out. Engines low, headlights off. The desert stretched out black and endless, a canvas of silence. She sat in the back of the lead vehicle, helmet resting against the steel frame, rifle case wedged between her knees. Every bump in the road rattled through her body, but her mind was elsewhere. Her brother's voice echoed in fragments. "You don't have to carry this forever, Anna." But she did, because he couldn't. The others in the vehicle spoke in murmurs, jokes, half-hearted. A man named Tors pulled out a photo of a little girl, his daughter, folded and creased from years in his pocket. He showed it to her without asking. "She just started school," he said, pride softening his voice. "Thinks I'm some kind of superhero." Anna managed to smile. "Maybe you are." He laughed, shaking his head. "If only she knew how scared I get before every op." There it was, honesty, fragile but real. She tucked it away. It reminded her they were human, all of them, not just shadows with rifles. The convoy slowed, the radio crackled, a voice in her earpiece, approaching staging point, 30 mics. Her heart thudded once, hard. 30 minutes, until the rifle would no longer be silent. They moved on foot from there, boots sinking into sand, gear rattling with each step. The night was brittle, every sound too loud, every shadow too deep. She kept her eyes scanning the horizon, the weight of her rifle slung across her shoulder like a promise she couldn't take back. They reached the outpost just before dawn. A crumbling building on the edge of a ruined village, windows blown out, walls scarred from years of someone else's war. Inside, the air smelled of dust and oil. "Set up here," the lieutenant ordered. Anna chose her corner, north-facing, line of sight toward the compound where the target would appear. She unpacked her rifle with deliberate care, each piece laid out like a ritual. The bolt, the scope, the magazine. Her fingers traced them with reverence, with fear. When she locked the bolt into place, it sounded louder than it should have. She exhaled slowly, cheek pressing against the stock as she tested the sightline. The world narrowed into crosshairs, into angles and distances. Numbers filled her head. Wind, elevation, humidity. Variables she had memorized, controlled, mastered. But there was one thing she couldn't calculate. Her own heart. Hours bled together. The team rotated watch, kept low, whispered over radios. Anna barely moved, only her eyes shifting behind the scope. The village was quiet, too quiet. Every second stretched. Her hands began to tremble again, not from fatigue, not from the rifle's weight, but from the thought of what would happen if she missed. Not just the mission, not just the team, but the memory, the ghost. She closed her eyes for a second, let the image come back, her brother, rooftop, his voice over the radio, "Take the shot, Anna, take it." And then silence. Her breath hitched. She forced her eyes open. The scope was waiting. Movement. Through the shattered compound window, a figure appeared. A man, tall, moving with the confidence of someone who had always been the center of fear. Guards flanked him. The target. Her throat dried. The radio whispered, "Target confirmed, green light." Her finger found the trigger, slowly, carefully. The world shrank until only the man's chest filled her sightline. Her rifle shook, just enough for her to feel it. She swallowed, steadied. Her heartbeat filled her ears like thunder. This was it, the weight of a nation pressed into her hands. The shot wasn't just a bullet, it was trust, it was redemption, it was everything. And she wasn't sure if she could pull it. Not yet. Why was her finger frozen on the trigger? The man in her crosshairs stood perfectly still, framed by the cracked glass of the compound window. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, as if the war outside his door didn't apply to him. He was the kind of man who had grown fat on fear, whose power wasn't earned but stolen, built on the silence of those who could not resist. The green light in her earpiece hissed again. "Shooter, do you copy?" Anna didn't respond. Her breath caught in her throat. Her cheek pressed against the stock, her finger hovering at the break of the trigger. It should have been simple. A single movement. A pull, a recoil, a life ended. But the rifle trembled. Her heartbeat thundered so loud she swore it could betray her position. The stock vibrated against her cheekbone, the scope flickering as if the glass itself questioned her resolve. She adjusted, tried to steady, but still, the tremor. What if they saw it? What if O'Neill glanced over and realized she wasn't steady, that the one carrying the nation's trust was buckling under its weight? Her lips parted. She exhaled slowly, the breath fogging faint in the cool dawn, and still her brother's voice came back. "Take the shot, Anna, take it." Silence. Always silence after. Her chest clenched. She blinked hard, forcing the image away, forcing herself back into the present. The target moved, gesturing to one of the guards. The moment stretched, her window narrowing by the second. She whispered under her breath, "Steady, come on, steady." And then she pressed. The rifle cracked. The recoil slammed into her shoulder, sharp and final. The sound shattered the dawn, echoing through the empty village like thunder. But the shot missed. Her stomach dropped. She knew it instantly. The round clipped the frame of the window, sending shards of stone and dust scattering. The target recoiled, ducking back out of sight, guards swarming him like wolves. Shooter missed. The voice in her earpiece was a curse, sharp and panicked. She didn't move, couldn't breathe. She had missed. Chaos erupted. Radios hissed, boots scrambled. The compound across the street lit with movement, men shouting, vehicles revving to life. Her team scattered inside the outpost, preparing for the retaliation that was coming. And Anna sat there, frozen behind her scope, staring at the empty window where the man had stood. O'Neill's voice cut through the noise. "Anna, relocate, we're blown." Her body moved before her mind did. She collapsed the bipod, slung the rifle, scrambled across the dust-strewn floor of the outpost. Her legs felt heavy, slow, like she was moving underwater. The others moved with precision, every step drilled and rehearsed. She felt like the only one drowning. They burst into the alley outside, weapons up, eyes scanning. Dust swirled in the rising sun, painting the village in pale gold and shadow. Somewhere in the distance, an engine roared to life. "Convoy's moving," Torres shouted. "We've got minutes." Minutes until the target vanished, until the mission was gone. Her chest heaved. The rifle felt heavier than it had in years, heavier than the day she first picked it up. And yet through the panic, something inside her whispered, "This isn't over. Not yet." They pushed through the narrow streets, boots kicking up clouds of dirt, the village waking around them with shutters slamming and dogs barking. The convoy of black SUVs appeared at the far edge, dust trailing behind them as they accelerated out of the compound. "There," O'Neill barked, "we cut them off or it's over." Anna dropped to one knee, rifle snapping to her shoulder. The SUVs blurred in the scope, bouncing over uneven ground, metal glinting. Her breath caught again, hands trembling again. She could take the shot, she could stop them here. But the memory pressed in, suffocating. That rooftop, that day, her brother's voice, the shot she never took. What if she missed again? Her finger hovered, frozen. O'Neill's hand clamped on her shoulder, shaking her back. "Move, we're not dying here." And just like that, the convoy was gone, dust swallowing them whole. Hours later, silence settled over the safe house like a weight no one wanted to touch. The mission was over, the target was alive, and every man in the room knew why. Anna sat in the corner, rifle leaning against the wall, helmet off, sweat drying against her skin. The others spoke in low voices, sharp and clipped, the words too quiet for her to catch. But she didn't need to hear them. She knew what they were saying. O'Neill paced the length of the room, jaw tight. His eyes kept flicking toward her, then away, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally he stopped, stared at her. "What happened out there?" His voice was calm, but only barely. Her lips parted, nothing came out. "You had him," he said, "clear shot and you missed." The words cut like glass. Her throat closed. She looked down at her hands still trembling in her lap. "I don't know." Silence. No one spoke, not even Torres, whose usual humor had dissolved into ash. O'Neill exhaled slowly, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You better figure it out, because next time we won't get another chance." Next time. If they even let her stay for a next time. The safe house dimmed as the day bled into dusk. The others slept in shifts, exhaustion pulling them under. But Anna sat awake, staring at the wall, her mind gnawing itself to pieces. Her brother's face haunted her. The last time she saw him alive, the radio in her ear, the target lined in her scope. She hadn't pulled the trigger then either. And it had cost him his life. Now years later she had failed again. Different rooftop, different war, same hesitation, same silence. She pressed her hands over her face, digging her palms into her eyes until sparks of light flickered. She wanted to scream, to shatter the silence around her, but all that came was a whisper. Why can't I do it? The question hung in the dark, unanswered. When dawn returned, so did the colonel's voice over the radio, calm, cold. Intel confirms target survived, relocating north. We're adjusting mission parameters. Team Bravo will intercept. You're on standby. Standby, the word burned. They were being sidelined. She was being sidelined. The team moved with quiet resignation, packing gear, cleaning rifles, pretending not to look at her, pretending she wasn't the reason they had failed. But O'Neill wasn't pretending. His eyes found her again, steady and unflinching. "You've got ghosts," he said under his breath, too quiet for the others. "And if you don't deal with them, they'll kill us all." She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she was fine, that next time she'd be ready. But she couldn't, because he was right. And the worst part, she didn't know if she could ever outrun them. That night she dreamed again, the rooftop, the voice, the silence after. But this time, when she turned in the dream, she saw something she had never let herself before. Her brother wasn't angry, he wasn't disappointed. He was afraid. Afraid because he knew she would carry his death forever. Afraid because he knew she would never forgive herself. And when she reached for him, he disappeared. She woke with her hands clenched, so tight her nails had cut her palms. The safe house was quiet, but outside, somewhere in the desert, the target was still alive. And Anna knew, whether the colonel trusted her or not, whether O'Neill believed in her or not, she couldn't let it end like this. Because the shot wasn't just a mission, it was redemption. And she wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. Why hadn't they pulled her off the team yet? She sat on the back step of the safe house, boots planted in dust, rifle resting across her lap like a confession she couldn't bury. The others moved inside, cleaning gear, checking comms, sharpening their edge for the next order. But no one asked her to help. No one even looked her way. Being ignored was worse than being shouted at. Shouting meant someone still believed you could change. Silence meant you were already gone. Her hands traced the barrel of the rifle, fingertips brushing over steel as if it might offer forgiveness. It didn't. Behind her, the door creaked open. Torres stepped out, a tin mug in his hand. He held it out to her without a word. Coffee. Bitter black, burned at the edges. She took it anyway. He sat beside her, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the horizon where night bled into a pale line of dawn. For a while, neither spoke. The silence pressed, but softer this time. Finally, he broke it. "You know, when my daughter was born, I swore I'd never miss a moment. First steps, first words, all of it. But here I am, half a world away." Anna glanced at him, but he didn't look back. His voice was low, rough, with something unspoken. "She thinks I'm brave, thinks I don't get scared. Truth is," he shook his head, smiling without humor, "every time I put my finger on a trigger, I wonder if I'll freeze, if I'll choke, if I'll be the one who doesn't pull." The words hit harder than any reprimand. He finally turned to her. "You're not broken, Anna, you're human." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to those words like rope in a storm. But her brother's ghost pressed back, louder than Tor's reassurance. Still, she whispered, "It doesn't feel that way." He studied her for a moment. Then he nodded, as if he understood more than he let on. "Just don't give up on yourself before the rest of us do." Then he stood, left her with the coffee and the rising sun. She sat there long after he was gone, the bitter taste lingering on her tongue. Orders came at noon. The colonel's voice on the secure line was clipped, each word wrapped in steel. "Target is relocating to a fortified compound in the north sector. Bravo team failed to intercept. You'll shadow, observe, report. No engagement without confirmation." O'Neill acknowledged, "Copy." Anna's chest sank. Shadow, observe, report. Words that stripped her of the one thing she was supposed to do. The rifle in her lap suddenly felt like dead weight. But O'Neill's eyes caught hers, sharp, measuring. "Pack up," he said. "We roll in 20." The desert stretched endless under the blistering sun. Heat waves shimmered, bending the horizon into illusions. Their convoy crawled forward, dust plumes rising behind them like ghosts that refused to be shaken. Anna sat pressed against the window, helmet heavy, sweat trickling down her spine. Her rifle rested between her knees, every bump of the vehicle rattling through her bones. She counted breaths, tried to still her hands, but inside a storm churned. Was this all she was now? An observer, a shadow, the one they didn't trust to fire. She closed her eyes. The memory of her brother surged again. That rooftop, that moment, the hesitation that cost him everything. And now this, history repeating. Her jaw clenched, she couldn't let it. They reached the staging point by dusk, a ridge overlooking the northern compound. From here, they could see the outline of walls, the glint of guard towers, the faint hum of generators. The place looked less like a hideout and more like a fortress. The team set up observation posts, optics scanning, radios whispering updates. O'Neill stood behind her as she unfolded her bipod, laid prone against the dirt, scope fixed on the compound's main gate. "Your eyes, not trigger," he reminded her. She didn't answer, just adjusted the scope, tightened her grip. Hours crawled. The desert cooled, shadows stretching long and sharp. She watched trucks roll in, guards rotate, lights flicker on one by one. Routine, ordinary, but every detail burned into her memory, catalogued with precision. And then movement. A black SUV, dust trailing. It pulled into the gate, guards snapping to attention. Her scope caught the figure as he stepped out, the target. She froze, not from fear this time, but from the surge that shot through her chest. He was there, alive, breathing, because of her failure. Her finger twitched against the trigger guard. Reflex, memory, desire. The earpiece crackled. Hold fire, eyes only. Her lips pressed thin, she obeyed. But inside, every nerve screamed to prove she could do it, to erase yesterday's silence with one clean pull. The target disappeared inside, the gate shut, and the chance was gone. Again. Night deepened. The team rotated shifts, one by one slipping into brief sleep. But Anna stayed awake, eye glued to the scope, refusing to blink, refusing to miss anything else. At 200, Torres crawled up beside her. "You need rest." "I'm fine." "You're not. Nobody is after 2 days awake." "I said I'm fine." He sighed but didn't argue. Instead, he lay beside her, peering through his own optics. For a while, silence stretched. Then he murmured, almost too soft to hear. "You know what scares me most? Not dying, not even leaving my daughter behind. It's the thought that when the moment comes, I won't be enough." Her breath caught. Because that was it. That was the truth she hadn't dared say aloud. Not to O'Neill, not to anyone. What if she wasn't enough? The desert wind whispered over them, carrying sand like ash. Neither spoke again, but his words lodged inside her chest like shrapnel. At dawn, movement broke the monotony. Doors opening, guards shifting. The target emerged, flanked by 2 men. He walked with the calm arrogance of someone who believed he was untouchable. He didn't even look up, didn't even glance toward the ridge where death could be waiting. Anna's pulse spiked. Her crosshairs found his chest, steady this time. No tremor, no hesitation. She could take him now. But the earpiece hissed again. "Negative fire, we wait for command." Her teeth clenched. She watched as he climbed into the SUV, door slamming shut, engine roaring. Dust kicked up. And then he was gone. Another chance, vanished into the desert. O'Neill called the team together as the sun rose higher. His face was carved from stone, but his voice carried the weight of what he didn't say. Commands reassessing. If we don't get clearance by tomorrow, they'll hand this over to another unit. We'll be ghosts again." The words landed heavy. Tors looked down. Another operator swore under his breath. Anna said nothing, but inside something snapped. She couldn't watch him slip through their hands again. Couldn't sit on the ridge, paralyzed by orders, while ghosts piled on her shoulders. This wasn't just about command or the mission. It was about her brother. The shot she never took. The life that still demanded an answer. She looked at O'Neill, at the team, at the compound shimmering in the heat below. And for the first time since the rooftop, she felt something burn hotter than fear. Resolve. That night, as the team slept in staggered shifts, Anna stayed awake, rifle across her knees. She whispered into the silence as if her brother could hear her across the years. "I won't miss again, not this time." The desert wind carried her words away, swallowed by the endless dark. But for the first time, her hands didn't shake. Not at all. Why was the silence louder than the gunfire she feared? The ridge lay still beneath a sky salted with stars. The desert stretched endless, a black ocean rippling with wind. The others slept in fragments, Tors snoring softly, one of the younger operators twitching in dreams, O'Neill resting against his pack with his rifle across his chest. But Anna didn't close her eyes. Couldn't. Her scope stayed fixed on the fortress below, where lights burned against the night and shadows patrolled the perimeter. Her finger brushed the trigger, not pulling, just remembering. The target was somewhere in there, breathing, planning, untouched. Because of her. Orders said wait, hold, watch, but orders didn't see her brother's face every time she blinked. Orders didn't feel the weight of silence pressing into her chest like stone. Her lips barely moved as she whispered into the dark, "I can't wait anymore." When morning came, the desert shimmered under a merciless sun. The compound below buzzed with movement, trucks loading, guards shifting, men hauling crates into the main building. Something was changing. Anna tracked it all through her scope, every angle, every doorway, every heartbeat of activity. Finally, O'Neill crouched beside her. He scanned the compound with binoculars, jaw tight. "They're mobilizing." "Then we move now," she said. His head turned, his eyes cut into her. "That's not our call." Her pulse quickened. "If they're moving him again, we'll lose him. You know it." O'Neill lowered the binoculars. Silence stretched, thick, heavy. "And you think you can fix it after last time?" The words sliced, clean and cruel. She flinched. But she didn't look away. Yes. For a long moment he studied her, as if searching for the tremor in her hands, the doubt in her eyes. But it wasn't there. Not anymore. Still he shook his head. "We wait for command." Then he walked away, leaving her in the heat, the crosshairs burning a hole in her vision. Orders, always orders. But orders had already cost her too much. By afternoon the team was restless. The air inside the hide was stifling, sweat pooling, tempers fraying. Tors tried to lighten it, telling a story about his daughter's last phone call, how she asked if the moon was the same where he was. The others laughed briefly, but the laughter cracked quick, falling back into silence. Anna sat apart, cleaning her rifle with methodical care. Every click of the bolt, every wipe of the cloth was a prayer. She didn't join their talk, didn't smile. The distance between her and them widened with every heartbeat. O'Neill noticed. She felt his eyes on her more than once, heavy with unspoken warnings. She didn't care. Because in her head, her brother's voice was louder. "Don't wait, Anna. Don't let the moment slip." She set the rifle down, barrel gleaming in the dim light, and she knew what she would do. Night bled across the desert, bringing with it a hush that felt like a held breath. The team rotated watches. O'Neill took first, Tors second. Anna was supposed to sleep, but her eyes never closed. Her heart thudded steady, too loud in the silence. When Tors shook her shoulder for her turn, she nodded, moving into position without a word. The others slipped into restless dreams. She waited, counted breaths, waited longer. Then slowly she picked up her pack. Her boots made no sound as she slipped out into the night, rifle slung across her shoulder, the ridge falling away behind her. Each step into the sand was a step further from orders, from command, from the team that no longer trusted her. But each step was also closer to the truth, closer to redemption. The desert swallowed her whole. The wind whispered, carrying grit against her cheeks. She moved low, deliberate, a shadow threading toward the fortress. Every sound was amplified, the crunch of sand under her boots, the rattle of gear, the thud of her heartbeat. When she reached the outer wall, she crouched, pressing against the cool stone. Guards patrolled above, rifles slung casual, their laughter carried faint in the wind. Anna closed her eyes, breathed once, twice, then she moved. Her fingers found cracks in the stone, boots gripping narrow ledges. She climbed with silent precision, years of training carrying her upward. Her breath stayed steady. Her mind stayed sharp. At the top she froze, body flat against the wall, eyes scanning. 2 guards 30 feet apart. She waited for their steps to sink, their gazes to turn. Then she vaulted over, dropping into shadow. The fortress smelled of oil and sweat, of dust and fear. She was inside. Every hallway felt like a heartbeat, every corner like a test. She moved with her rifle cradled tight, steps silent, breath measured. Voices drifted from a lit room, men speaking in sharp tones, the clink of glasses, the scrape of chairs. She inched closer, peering just enough. And there he was. The target. Closer than ever. Her pulse surged. She could raise the rifle now, end it. But no, too open, too many guards. A single shot here meant chaos, death, failure. She forced herself back into shadow, jaw tight, heart hammering. Not yet. She would find another way. Hours passed in fragments of silence and movement. She mapped the place in her head, stairwells, guard routes, doors locked and unlocked. Every detail mattered. And then a discovery. A rooftop, high clear overlooking the central courtyard, the perfect perch. She crouched there, rifle assembled, scope aligned. The compound stretched beneath her, every angle visible. The wind was steady, the air cool, the sightlines clean. She exhaled. This was it, the chance she had been chasing since the rooftop with her brother. And yet, as her crosshairs locked onto the door below, the one the target always used, her hands trembled again. Not like before, not fear, something else. Memory. Her brother's last words, the silence after, the years of guilt. Her eyes stung. She blinked hard, forcing it back. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about trust, about every life that hung on her trigger finger. She steadied, and for the first time in years, the rifle didn't shake. But then footsteps behind her. On it. The voice was O'Neill's. Her blood froze. She turned. He stood in the shadow of the rooftop entrance, rifle low, eyes sharp. He had followed her. His face was unreadable. Anger, fear, something else beneath it. "What the hell are you doing?" he hissed. Her lips parted. The words came raw, unfiltered. "I'm finishing this." His jaw clenched. For a moment she thought he might drag her back, end it all, but instead he just stared, long, heavy. Finally he said, "Then don't miss." And he melted into shadow, leaving her alone again. Her chest tightened. No more hesitation, no more ghosts. She lowered her cheek to the stock, breath steady, crosshairs fixed. The door opened below. The target stepped into the courtyard. This was it. The moment that carried the weight of everything. And this time, she would not let it slip. The crosshairs settled. The courtyard below was a stage lit by a single overhead lamp, its harsh glow casting sharp shadows on stone walls. The target walked with unhurried confidence, 2 guards trailing a few steps behind. He paused to speak with a man at the door, then gestured broadly, his voice carrying faintly through the night air. Anna's finger hovered on the trigger. Her breath slowed, her heartbeat counted the seconds. This was it. But for the briefest instant the tremor came back, not in her hands but in her mind. Her brother's face flickered in memory, the rooftop, the silence that followed. Not again. She forced her thoughts to steel. This isn't about me. This is about every soldier who won't come home if I fail. This is about the trust placed in my hands. The rifle pressed into her shoulder, familiar weight, a promise. She exhaled and squeezed. The shot cracked like thunder, shattering the desert silence. The target jerked mid-stride, collapsing into the dirt. Blood bloomed across his chest. For a fraction of a second, the world froze. Then chaos erupted. Guards shouted, guns raised, floodlights flared to life, sweeping across the compound. The courtyard exploded into movement, men shouting orders, boots pounding, rifles firing wild into the night. Anna stayed perfectly still, breath sharp, scope scanning. No tremor now, no doubt. The shot had landed, clean, final. And yet something was wrong. Her eyes caught it. The man she shot wasn't him. Not the true target. A decoy. Her chest clenched as realization struck. And then the real one appeared. He burst from the far doorway, flanked by bodyguards, head ducked low as they sprinted across the courtyard toward an armored vehicle. Anna swung the scope fast, heart hammering. She had one chance left, one shot before he vanished. The crosshairs wavered for a breath. She steadied. Pulled. The second shot split the night. And the target stumbled, fell, didn't rise. The courtyard drowned in chaos, men dragging him, shouting, scrambling. But she saw the truth through her scope. His chest was still, his body limp. It was done. The mission was done. Her rifle lowered, her hands finally still. But the silence that followed wasn't relief. It was the silence she feared most. O'Neill's voice hissed behind her, "Move now." She didn't look back, didn't waste a second. Together they fled the rooftop, boots pounding across stone, slipping through shadow as alarms blared. The fortress was alive with fury, guards shouting, searchlights sweeping, doors slamming open. Anna's lungs burned, legs driving hard as she followed O'Neill through winding corridors, down a stairwell, across a narrow hall. Every step was hunted, every sound amplified by adrenaline. They burst through a service door into the open desert, the night wind hitting them cold. "Run," O'Neill barked. They sprinted into darkness, leaving the fortress behind, gunfire erupting on the walls above. Bullets snapped through the air, dirt kicking at their feet. Anna dove low, rolling behind a dune. O'Neill slid beside her, panting hard. "Radio," he growled, "now." She ripped it from her pack, breath jagged, and keyed the mic. "Command, this is Echo Team. Mission success. Target is down. Repeat, target is down." Static. Then a voice, cold, steady. "Copy, extraction inbound, hold position." Her body slumped, exhaustion and adrenaline tangling in her veins. She had done it, against orders, against doubt. She had done it. But the silence in her chest wasn't pride. It was heavier. They regrouped with Tors and the others at the ridge. Faces tight, eyes sharp, weapons ready. "You crazy or just suicidal?" Tors snapped the moment he saw her. His voice cracked with anger, but beneath it was something else, fear. O'Neill cut him off. "Save it, mission done." The others stared at Anna, questions unspoken. Did she betray them? Did she risk them all? She didn't answer, couldn't. Her gaze stayed fixed on the horizon, where the fortress still blazed with searchlights, chaos spilling into the night. One thought looped in her head. It's over, it has to be over. But deep down she knew, nothing was ever that simple. Hours later, the desert wind carried the sound of rotor blades. The extraction bird skimmed low, dust kicking in a violent storm. The team sprinted, boards clattering under their boots as they leapt inside. The doors slammed shut. The helicopter lifted, tilting hard, engines roaring. For the first time since the shot, Anna's body let go. Muscles slack, rifle heavy in her lap, she stared at the floor, chest rising in shallow breaths. Across from her, Tors glared but didn't speak. Another operator cleaned sand from his rifle with shaking hands. O'Neill sat beside her, silent, his expression carved from stone. Finally, he leaned close. His words were quiet, meant for her alone. "You got him, but you didn't follow orders." Her throat tightened. "If I had, we'd have lost him." He studied her, long, unreadable, then looked away. The silence between them carried more weight than any gunfire. Back at base, debriefing was cold and clinical. Command confirmed the kill. The nation's news would soon erupt with headlines of justice, victory, relief. Politicians would speak of resolve. Generals would nod with pride. But inside the room, Anna sat across from men in uniform whose eyes carried no warmth. "You went against direct orders," one of them said flatly. "You endangered your team. You acted alone." Her jaw tightened. She said nothing. Another officer leaned forward. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Her mind filled with 1,000 words. The silence of that rooftop years ago, the weight of her brother's absence, the trust of a nation she felt in her hands. But all she said was, "I took the shot." The room went still. Finally, one of the officers closed the file. "Dismissed." That was it, no praise, no punishment, just silence. The kind that followed you like a shadow. Outside, night wrapped the base in quiet. She walked alone across the tarmac, boots crunching faintly, stars sharp above. She had ended the mission, ended him. But inside, nothing felt ended. Her rifle didn't shake anymore. Her hands did. Later, in the dim of her barracks, she laid the rifle across her knees. The same one that had failed her years ago, the same one that carried the weight tonight. Her fingers brushed the stock, tracing invisible scars. And she wondered, had she redeemed herself, or only chained herself deeper to the silence she feared? Her eyes closed. She listened to the hum of the bass, the far-off laughter of men who hadn't carried her weight. The silence between those sounds pressed heavy. Because she knew the truth now. The shot she took hadn't just carried the trust of a nation. It carried her soul. And she wasn't sure if she'd ever get it back. The mission was done. But her war wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Why did the base seem quieter than usual? Anna noticed it the moment she stepped out of the barracks the next morning. Conversations hushed when she walked by. Men who normally nodded in passing avoided her eyes. The canteen, usually filled with clatter and casual banter, felt weighted with silence when she entered. She sat alone at the corner table, tray untouched. It wasn't anger she felt from them, it was distance. Like she had crossed an invisible line. Her fork scraped against the metal tray, the sound sharp, isolating. She pushed the food aside. Appetite wasn't the issue, trust was. The mission was officially a success. Command had confirmed the kill. The country would sleep easier tonight. Yet she could feel it in the room. Her fellow soldiers didn't look at her as one of them anymore. Not after she'd broken ranks. O'Neill found her later by the training range. She had the rifle pressed tight to her shoulder, eyes fixed on the target 100 meters out. Shot after shot tore through paper, each one dead center. She didn't miss, not here, not now. But the paper didn't bleed. "You keep that up, they'll start thinking you're showing off," O'Neill said quietly, stepping up beside her. She lowered the rifle, jaw tense. "They already think worse." He studied her profile, the hard lines of her face, the way her eyes didn't blink much anymore. "You saved the mission," he said. Her reply was flat, and broke the chain. Chain doesn't always hold. She turned, finally meeting his gaze. But when it breaks, someone always pays. O'Neill didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence said it all. That night she was summoned again. Another debriefing. Not in the usual sterile conference room, but in a smaller office, dimly lit, the air heavy with cigarette smoke. Two officers sat behind a desk, their uniforms neat, eyes sharper than the edge of a blade. "Specialist," one began, voice calm, almost disarming. "Your mission was a success. The target's removal has already altered enemy operations. You should feel pride." The word landed hollow. The other leaned forward, fingers steepled. "But your methods raise concern. You disobeyed. You acted without clearance. Do you understand what that means?" Anna held his gaze. "I understand what it would have meant if I hadn't." For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, the first officer exhaled smoke, slow and deliberate. "There are victories that make you a hero, and there are victories that isolate you. Know the difference." Dismissed again. No punishment, no praise. Just that heavy silence. Back in the barracks, she sat on the edge of her bunk, the rifle leaning against the wall like a quiet witness. Her teammates returned one by one, boots scuffing, laughter thin and forced. None of them spoke to her. Except Tors. He stopped at her bunk, eyes burning. "You think what you did makes you special." His voice was low, venom threaded with hurt. "You gambled with all of us. If that shot went wrong, if they caught us, we'd be the ones buried, not you." She didn't flinch. "The shot didn't go wrong." "That's not the point." His fist tightened, but he didn't swing. "The point is, none of us could trust you up there." The words cut deeper than any wound. She didn't reply. He walked away, shaking his head, muttering something she couldn't hear. The silence after him echoed louder. Sleep didn't come. She lay awake, listening to the low hum of the bass, the occasional cough, the restless turning of men trying to dream. Her mind replayed the shot, the mission, the moment she knew it was a decoy. Her brother's face lingered, the rooftop years ago. His voice, "Don't miss this one, Anna, it's on you." And then the silence that followed when he didn't come back. Her chest tightened until she thought it might crack. She sat up, swung her legs down, pulled the rifle into her lap. Her hand traced the cold barrel, the familiar weight pressing into her skin. "Do they hate me," she whispered, "or are they afraid of me?" The rifle didn't answer. Days passed, training, briefings, patrols, the usual rhythm, but she felt it, distance woven into every interaction. She was still on the roster, still in uniform, but no longer part of the circle. Men laughed around her, but not with her. Conversations ended when she walked in. Small gestures, like Tors dropping his gear on the opposite bench, or another sniper shifting down a seat at the mess table, drove nails into her sense of belonging. Only O'Neill stood steady, though his support was subtle. A nod, a quiet word, the occasional reminder that he had seen the shot, had watched her steady when it mattered. But one voice wasn't enough to drown the silence of the many. Then came the ceremony. Not hers. A memorial. They gathered at dusk, boots lined in perfect rows, rifles slung, heads bowed. 3 soldiers from another unit hadn't made it back. Their helmets sat on rifles planted in the ground, dog tags gleaming in fading light. The chaplain's voice wavered as he spoke of sacrifice, duty, honor, words that felt too small for the silence that hung over the desert. Anna stood among them, back straight, eyes fixed ahead. But inside she crumbled. Because as taps played, as the last note hung in the air, she thought of her brother. She thought of his name, etched on a stone thousands of miles away. And she wondered if her own name would one day be read out the same way, spoken with pride, but surrounded by silence. Would they remember her as the one who saved the mission, or the one they couldn't trust? The thought broke something in her. Tears stung, but she didn't let them fall. Not here, not in front of them. Her face remained stone, Her hands didn't shake. Only her heart did. Later, back in the barracks, she sat alone again. The night outside was still, the desert stretching endless and indifferent. O'Neill came in quietly, setting his gear down, glancing at her. He saw the look on her face, the weight in her eyes. "You're not alone," he said softly. She didn't look up. "Feels like it. They don't hate you. They just don't understand what it costs to take a shot like that." Her hands tightened around the rifle stock. "Then maybe I don't belong here." He stepped closer, his voice steady. "You belong, but you have to decide if you can live with what it takes." She lifted her eyes, meeting his. "And if I can't?" For the first time, his voice cracked. "Then the silence will eat you alive." The words struck harder than any reprimand, because she knew he was right. That night she wrote a letter, not to command, not to her team. To her brother. She wrote about the mission, the shot, the silence after. She wrote about the distance she felt, the doubt, the way her hands wouldn't stop trembling when the room went quiet. She wrote until her hand ached, until the words blurred. Then she folded the paper, slid it into her journal, and set it beside her bunk. Her war wasn't done. But maybe, writing it down was the first way to fight the silence. Outside, the desert wind whispered against the walls. The stars burned cold above. And in the stillness of her room, a soldier sat awake, staring at the rifle in her lap, wondering if the shot she took would ever stop echoing inside her. Her rifle didn't shake anymore. But her soul did. Why was her name on the list? The orders came down without warning. A new op, a recon and intercept deep into hostile ground, high risk, zero margin. When the roster was read aloud, she heard it her own. Heads turned toward her across the briefing room, some expressions flat, others sharp with disbelief. Torres shook his head in silence. She didn't flinch, didn't let them see the question burning in her mind. After everything, why send me again? Maybe command wanted to test her. Maybe they wanted her to fail. Or maybe they believed, in some quiet way, that only she could make it work. None of that mattered. Orders were orders, and her rifle didn't care about politics. The mission was simple in writing, impossible in execution. Intercept a convoy rumored to be carrying a high-value courier. He wasn't the leader, but he carried information, locations, codes, maybe even the names of cells embedded across the region. If they captured him alive, it could change everything. If they failed, he'd vanish into the desert. Anna sat through the briefing, expression unreadable, eyes fixed on the map projected across the wall. Red lines traced routes, blue markers noted checkpoints. She memorized every turn, every escape path. But inside, she felt the old weight return. The last mission had left cracks, and this one would break open what hadn't yet healed. Night fell hard across the desert. The team moved quiet, shadows against sand. Anna crouched low among the rocks, rifle at her shoulder, eyes sweeping through the scope. The convoy came into view, 3 vehicles, headlights off, rolling slow across open ground. Dust plumes drifted faint in the moonlight. Her breathing slowed. Not the same shot, not the same mission, but the same weight. Tor's voice whispered over comms. "We need him alive. Anyone starts firing early, it's over." The words weren't for the team, they were for her. Anna didn't reply. She just adjusted the scope, tracking the second vehicle where intel said the courier sat. The convoy rolled closer. O'Neill raised his hand, waited, dropped it. The desert exploded. Torres and 2 others opened fire, rounds shredding tires, glass shattering. The lead truck skidded sideways, kicking sand, men spilling out. Shouts erupted, rifles answering, flashes lighting the night. Anna stayed steady, breath locked, eyes fixed. Through the chaos she saw him, the courier, young, thin, a face too soft for this war, eyes wide with panic as he ducked inside the vehicle. She shifted aim, sight locked on the guard dragging him out. A clean shot would free the courier, but only if she trusted herself. Her finger hovered. Her brother's face flickered again, his last words the silence after. Her rifle shook. For half a breath she froze. And then O'Neill's voice snapped in her ear. "Anna, take it." The sound broke her paralysis. She exhaled, fired. The guard dropped. The courier stumbled free, caught in Tor's grip an instant later. Alive! Alive! Anna lowered the rifle, chest heaving. This time she hadn't failed. But the battle wasn't over. Gunfire rained from the third truck, bullets tearing into sand around them. One man screamed, clutching his leg, blood pouring fast. Anna swung back, firing 3 shots in quick rhythm. One guard fell, then another. The third scrambled into the desert shadows. Silence crept in again, broken only by the team's ragged breaths, the groans of the wounded, the cough of engines cooling in the night air. The courier struggled, but Tor's had him pinned. "Got him," Tor spat. His eyes cut to Anna, not thanks, not praise, just a stare. As if he wanted to remind her, this doesn't change what you did before. They exfilled fast, carrying the wounded, dragging the courier. The desert stretched endless, every shadow a threat. The helicopter came in low, blades slicing sandstorms into the night. The team piled in, hearts still hammering. Anna stayed near the door, rifle still raised, eyes scanning the black horizon. Only when the bird lifted, carrying them away, did her body sag, muscles trembling. She'd taken the shot, saved the mission again. But the silence in the cabin told her it wasn't enough. Back at base, the courier was dragged into interrogation. Doors slammed, voices rose, secrets began spilling. The mission was a success on paper. But outside those rooms, among her brothers in arms, the air was different. One by one they left the hangar, not a word to her, not a nod. Tor's passed close, his voice low, bitter. One good shot doesn't erase the last one. Anna didn't move, didn't answer. She just stood there, rifle slung, silence pressing harder than the desert heat. That night she sat outside alone, the desert stretching endless before her, stars sharp above, wind dry against her skin. The rifle leaned against her shoulder. Her hands rested still. But her mind replayed it all, the mission, the shot, the silence. She saved him, she saved them. So why didn't it feel like salvation? Because deep down she knew. Trust wasn't rebuilt in a single night, not in a single shot. It had to be earned, over and over, until the silence broke. And she wasn't sure if hers ever would. Still, as she sat there, the desert vast and indifferent, she whispered to the stars, "I won't miss again." The words carried into the night, softer than the wind. Her rifle didn't shake. Her hands didn't tremble. But inside, her soul ached with the weight of every shot she had taken, and every silence that followed. The war wasn't done. And neither was she. Why did the silence feel heavier than the gunshot? The mission was over, the target neutralized, the world, at least for now, safer. But inside her chest the weight pressed harder than ever. Her rifle was still warm against her shoulder, but her hands had already gone cold. She lowered it slowly, almost as if she were letting go of a part of herself. Around her the team was moving, checking comms, exhaling relief, muttering fragments of disbelief that they were alive. Yet no one dared disturb her silence. She looked out at the horizon. It was neither dawn nor dusk, just a gray stretch of sky, indifferent to what had just happened below. Smoke curled lazily in the distance. Somewhere a dog barked, oblivious to the lives just lost. She stood there, her cheeks still tender from where the rifle's stock had pressed, and thought of her father. She had always imagined he'd be proud of her if she served. But she wondered, would he be proud of this? They said her shot carried the trust of a nation, that without it hundreds, maybe thousands, might have died. But none of those voices would ever hear the tremor in her breath, or feel the crack that opened inside her when she squeezed the trigger. Heroic sounded noble from a podium, clean in a headline. They were never this quiet, never this lonely. The sergeant walked up behind her. He didn't speak right away. He just stood, letting the moment stretch. Then he whispered, "It's done." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight he carried too. They all had their ghosts. Tonight she had earned hers. She gave a small nod, unable to trust her voice. She remembered the words someone once told her: sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. As they moved out, boots crunching against broken earth, she carried her rifle differently. Not as a weapon, not even as a shield, but as a reminder. A reminder that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act while your whole body shook. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a human, fragile, scarred, but still standing. And in that fragile silence, maybe there was strength. The night swallowed them as they left the field behind. No one cheered, no flags waved, but somewhere far away, families would sleep safely. Somewhere, a child would see another sunrise. And she would carry the silence of the ones she couldn't save, the silence of the shot that had changed everything. She didn't need applause, she didn't need recognition. Because sometimes, the loudest echoes of courage are the ones that remain unspoken.